there is a gap on the technology side, yeah? As we said, this industry evolved in the last 5-6 years. So people are more aware about optimization. They want to do testing. They want to be agile. They want to use data to create different experiences and things like that. And this is what basically optimization and CRO is all about. It's very tight, knitting together with personalization and doing, let's say, data-driven marketing.
Grand Space on Air. Future Peaks podcast series.
Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode here on our podcast and also on YouTube. Today I have the pleasure to be talking to Iztok Franko. He's from Diggintravel, and they just released their annual yearbook of digital optimization. So it's a pleasure to have you here, Iztok, to talk a bit more about the yearbook and also the Airline Digital Optimization in general.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. It's good to be on the other side of the microphone, so really
Yes.
looking forward to this opportunity.
Okay, and let's start with that. Tell us a bit more about the yearbook, how it all started, what are the main goals of it?
Yeah, I mean, this whole, let's say, yearbook thing or digital optimization benchmarks started back in 2017. And it started basically out of my passion, let's say, for digital optimization, for UX, for conversion optimization. Back when I worked for an airline, let's say my career progressed basically from IT to e-commerce to digital marketing to marketing. So as mostly every airline back then in mid 2000, let's say 10, 20s, we wanted to increase our share of digital e-commerce. So as I started to really look how we can do this more systematically, is there any framework how you can do this, how you can increase your web sales? I started studying about conversion optimization, UX optimization, structured analytics, and we started to implement that in practice. We had great results. I think for 24 months we had double-digit online sales growth. So this is where the passion came from. So then when I started, let's say, my own company, Diggintravel, and we started, the goal was to educate the industry about this more systematic approach to airline e-commerce and digital marketing. Because often I see like more random or let's say stochastic approach in terms of we do things, but it's not really structured. I'm a very structured person, so that's why we wanted to educate. And since 2017, we did like 5 rounds of benchmarks of surveying of people, and then creating the results, creating the benchmarks and yearbook reports. So this, let's say, if I look back to 2017, the first report, I'm kind of ashamed of it now because it evolved really to, I would say, like one of the biggest airline digital e-commerce research papers.
Wow, yeah. It's part of the process, I guess.
Yes, part of the learning, iteration,
Yes.
and optimization, also with the yearbook. So
you have this concept of the digital optimization model.
Yeah.
How would you define it?
basically, we try to break down airline digital optimization, e-commerce, conversion optimization. So basically, in a nutshell, I'm using these terms interchangeably all the time, but in a nutshell, it's how airlines optimize their web sales, their digital sales and mobile sales. So we try to break down this process into 8 areas, from organization, people, to skills, to tools, to what kind of research you do, UX research, to what kind of analytics you do, what kind of tools you use. One special area that I'm sure we'll talk about is airline booking engines, because they're the key platform here, and then what kind of organizational support you have. So we have these 8 areas. We try to assess airline in each of these 8 areas from level 1 to 5, level 1 being, let's say, the beginning of the maturity, and level 5 being the most mature. So this model also evolved through the years, but what we found out by using this model and some additional questions that we use, we get quite a good pulse with airlines. As they self-assess during this process, we get quite a good pulse, and we can then distinguish where in this whole overall maturity where airlines are.
Yeah. And I just saw a post from you on LinkedIn that you had more than 5,000 downloads, right? If I'm not wrong.
Yeah, as I was preparing for this interview,
yeah.
I started to reflect back. I said, okay, because we talked that we will talk about a little bit of evolution. So yeah, over these 5 years, more than 5,000 people, which is, I think, a lot, knowing that this is, let's say, a niche. Yeah, it's like
Yes.
airline industry and niche of airline industry, e-commerce and digital marketing experts. So for me, if I reflect, seeing that more than 5,000 of them were intrigued by this, I'm quite, proud on this accomplishment.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. And how? So you're doing this since 2017. How do you see this evolution in terms of digitalization, or even the importance of this topic for airlines?
Yeah, I was trying to do for this last yearbook for 2023. We tried to do and put some content in how the industry evolved and how this area evolved in the last 5-6 years. And I think so many different things happened, you know. We had COVID in between, which was a disruptor.
Yes.
So, and I think, I don't want to be presumptuous, but I think a little bit of growth in the industry, like a tiny part, is also what we are doing with this content and research. Because I see during each of these, let's say, 5 research projects, I reach out to more than 100 or 120 airline e-commerce leaders to try to convince them to participate in our survey. And I always appreciate everybody's support, so I would like to say it here again. But during this research, we talk about this process, and I see that people back in 2017, where this structured approach to, let's say, e-commerce optimization was not as well known, was a lot of people intrigued by it, trying to learn by it, and now, 5 years, 6 years later, we see some of the airlines having structured digital optimization teams, which see these very specialized roles. So I see our field and our industry evolving, and I also get this not only from our benchmarks and from our results, but also by talking to airline digital leaders on a daily basis on events. And they told me, "Ooh, this is something interesting." We did a lot of workshops with airlines, trying to educate them on this process. So I think as an industry, recognition for this, that this is what we call scientific or smart data-driven airline marketing decision-making. And I think there is much better recognition now that this is the process that really works.
Yeah. I'm sure you had some surprising results, but can you mention 2, 3 that was the most surprising?
Yeah, I mean, this year, surprising. What I'm surprised is that, in a way, I am surprised, but also then, if you really think about, not really, but initially what I was surprised that the gap between airlines who are still not recognizing this and who are still at the beginning of this journey, and the airlines who are, like I said, evolved through these 5-6 years in this process is getting bigger. Yeah. So this is what I see. I still see some airlines that are not, and it's kind of logical because I think COVID disrupted a lot. We saw in our past researches that airlines had to downsize the teams, digital teams. So I think a lot of know-how was lost in between. So now as we getting people back, we need to re-educate some of these people. So that's why I see that airlines who were smart during COVID and didn't lose this inside knowledge completely, they continued. They had let's say a 1 or 2 year period that they went a little bit slower, but they didn't take step backs. While on the other hand, I see some airlines that took step backs in terms of recognition, knowledge, so we have to start over from the scratch. So this is one. The second one, more positive, that I was surprised was how many airlines said that during the last year they increased their digital teams. So this is what we see. COVID was for a lot of airlines a strong motivator, a push to go, especially for traditional airlines, to go now all in on direct distribution, on e-commerce, on digital sales. So we see that more than 60% of airlines said in our survey that they increased their digital teams during the past 12 months. And I think more than 20 or 23 or something was the percent that said that they increased their teams significantly.
No. Good to see that it was actually an opportunity, this struggling times for some. One number that we had here, and I'll just quote your yearbook, that 62% of airlines said that investment in the internet booking engine, upgrading, optimization, or simplification is one of their focus areas this year. Why is this percentage so high?
I think it's always high in the last 5-6 years. It's always like this. There is a gap on the technology side. Yeah, as we said, this industry evolved in the last 5-6 years. So people are more aware about optimization. They want to do testing. They want to be agile. They want to use data to create different experiences and things like that. And this is what basically optimization and CRO is all about. It's very tight, knitting together with personalization and doing, let's say, data-driven marketing. But on the other hand, I think the backend, the booking engines, the legacy technology that a lot of airlines are using didn't evolve as fast. So I think we still need time to catch up on these modern, let's say, approaches for most. So that's why we see a little bit of frustration with airlines. We say, okay, you are teaching us or you are telling us we should do this and this, like testing, you should do smart analytics, you should, experiment on your booking flows, but then we don't have the technology, we don't have the core platform to allow us that. So that's why we see, in a way, it's, again, optimistic, it's positive that more than 60% of airlines want to invest in this because they want to have new modern digital platforms.
And how do you see a good implementation of this digital optimization now in practice?
Yeah, I mean, depends where you start. Yeah, how big is your team? How big is your airline? Typically, in smaller airlines, we typically see somebody gets intrigued by this. Somebody in digital marketing, in e-commerce, start researching. Maybe finds our paper, or maybe finds some other research on this, and then they start to learn about these things. And typically this person becomes like internal champion, internal, let's say, key motivator to try. So then they try to set up analytics, then they try to experiment with some agile user research and maybe some simple tests. So this is typically how they try. And then as things evolve, maybe if you get some quick wins, some good let's say, first proof of concept scenarios of optimization, you increase conversion, or you increase sales, or you do better campaigns. Then I think we start talking, okay, how can we put this, let's say, in a bigger process? So typically the next step from that is like a small team. There is like a small optimization team, part of e-commerce or digital marketing. But what we've seen through the last couple of years, the better airlines, the bigger airlines, now they're trying to not have one centralized team to do this optimization, but they are trying to embed this kind of thinking, this kind of methods, mindset into their digital teams. So it's more about educating digital project managers, developers, let's say product owners, how to do that. It's more like education and support rather than control it centrally in their digital marketing departments.
Yeah. And you said that some airlines still, maybe this process can be frustrating, but what are the main challenges, the most common that you see, and the recommendations you have to deal with them?
I mean, the main challenge, and it's not only, I would say, in e-commerce, it's overall in airline, in marketing, or in any other businesses that I consulted in the past. It's just often it starts with basic analytics. I think a lot of people are still uncomfortable working with data, taking data-driven decisions. So this is the first part. let's see, how are you measuring things on your website, on your mobile apps? What are your KPIs? What do you want to optimize? So a lot of cases we have to go back to really basics, yeah, and set these analytics, guide them how to break key KPIs from the top, so from the key e-commerce goals to the tactical ones. And then once we have this broken down, once we are able to track it, then we say, okay, now let's find cases that will really have an impact on the top high-level KPI. So I think this structured approach based on data, more systematic approach is often, especially if you don't understand it completely, people get a little bit afraid of it. But I think once you educate, once you really understand, and once you understand the benefits, I think then people get motivated to start doing it or trying it.
Yeah. And in terms of technology, what technologies do you see having the most impact in the upcoming years in this digital optimization?
Yeah, I mean, I can talk about what technology especially excites me lately. Just before going there, I would say, as I said, we need to start with basics. Yeah, we need to start with core analytic platforms, core booking engine platforms, like we said. Just being able to, we often used in the past research and word own your digital platforms. And by own, it doesn't mean that they need to be your own or developed by you. But I think airline digital teams needs to own them in a way that they can control what they change, how they change it, how they, let's say, optimize it, how they measure and things like that. But going back to your question, what I'm most intrigued, especially last 2 years, I've been really trying to dig deeper into data science. So thinking about what are the data science, let's say, concepts, algorithms, things like that can help us doing better e-commerce and digital marketing. So I think there is a big opportunity there in terms of recognizing trends, recognizing bottlenecks, in your recognizing your building customer clusters for later personalizations, for optimization. So a lot of opportunities there. I started doing some of these things on my own, let's say coding some of the data science. And once you start learning about that, you see how accessible it is. So I don't know, I think 20 years ago, you probably needed to have a PhD in math or statistics to build complex, let's say, models. But now a lot of these models are accessible, so you don't need to build them from scratch, but you can just learn about them and then try it with your own data and experiment again. So this, I think, there is a lot of excitement, and we see it now, the latest boom with ChatGPT, it's like very similar. And even here, for example, to me, it's amazing because, as I said, I was learning about coding in R, about data science, building some of these models. And even here, ChatGPT can help you. It's writing half of my code now. So sometimes I had to Google, I had to find how I would, I don't know, do a certain part of the code. Now you can ask and you get an answer by this crazy machine on the other side that helps you. So I think, again, you could be scared of this, but on the other hand, once you start learning more, I think it can help us immensely. So I think for me, it's the next frontier in this optimization. So once we fix the basics, once we fix the basal tracking, but then airlines that I worked with, every single airline that I worked with in the past on optimization cases had more than, let's say, 1 million people on their websites, tens of millions on a monthly basis. So just figuring out, better what people are doing and why they are doing, and then I think it starts with data, and then also all kinds of different agile research methods that we are also, let's say, teaching airlines how to do.
Yeah, speaking of ChatGPT, even one of our colleagues was experimenting.
Yeah, I saw that. Asking about
for another management. Yeah.
Exactly.
And we were all surprised at how good the response was. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
What impact do you maybe you already see of this yearbook that you do and the importance of this topic for airlines? What direct impact do you see already happening in the airline industry?
I think
for people that maybe are not familiarized with it.
Yeah, I think the key impact is like I was telling a little bit earlier about. It's just educating, As I said, I see many airlines that started to apply these principles in practice. I had one such case on our podcast in our yearbook. So 2017, we were talking to one e-commerce and person working for an airline, and he was that first guy in that airline that started to get intrigued by it. And then we did this story with him like 5 years later through COVID, how much they evolved, like building their team, digital team. It grew from 3 people to 20 people, and integrating this concept there. To me, watching that, how it evolved in these 5 years was amazing. So if there is one airline that we can help on this journey, again, I will be happy and let's say satisfied. But I think a big part of the airline, we posted a lot of different roles in different areas of this framework that we talked about. So in these 8 areas, and seeing these roles pop up on airline job boards makes my heart warm, because you see that airlines are getting some of the roles that were not there 2-3 years ago. They are now like on a lot of airlines, digital teams and e-commerce teams.
Yeah, and you already talked about many recommendations, but let's maybe try to make a summary. Let's see, maybe a small airline. What recommendations in the summary would you give to start with this approach?
Yeah, I would say just invest in people and invest in first educating yourself about this. Because if you look into overall airline, let's say digital or e-commerce or IT budgets, spend that goes into platforms, technology, distribution is huge. And also the digital marketing and e-commerce budgets, the money that typically we invest in customer acquisition, so in digital advertising, they are not small amounts for most airlines. So just thinking about, okay, I'm investing this large sum in areas. So to me, investing, let's say, smaller or part of your budget into educating, building your digital team, building your skills, and then also educating them about this more scientific data-driven process, it's like a no-brainer, because it just gets you most of something that you already have. So, and what we've seen, and there was a funny story that I put into introduction of our yearbook. So one airline CEO asked me about how we can measure how good are our digital products, and this story will tell you about the impact. And I said, we do this. Our benchmark is not benchmark of your digital products, Our benchmark is benchmark of your digital process. Yeah. So, and he understood right away. He was a smart guy. He said, okay, this is you benchmark the process, but we want to benchmark what is the end result. And I said, okay, we don't do that, but I see a very strong correlation over these 5-6 years. So whenever I work consulting workshops, airlines that are mature in this process, there is a strong correlation that they build good digital products. And on the other hand, airlines that don't typically struggle with, let's say, user experience, digital user experience, because this is a systematic process of how you get there, how everybody's talking about, let's be more customer centric. We want to build customer centric solutions. But if you don't use your data to understand customer behavior, if you don't do research to understand your customer behavior and key friction points, and you don't test and see what really moves the needle for them, then it's like, being blind. You don't know. You're just guessing, And okay, somebody sometimes even guess can hit the target, or even blind shooting, you can hit the target. But I would, Yes, but I would say there is a much higher chance if you really have a good aiming devices, that help you shoot in the right direction,
So, and you also have your own podcast, as you said, and a blog with many valuable interviews. Why is it important for people that work in airlines also to know what others are doing?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how important it is, but it started as let's say, I just wanted to talk to more airline digital people about these things, Not only about digital optimization, but broader trends, I don't know, innovation, things like that. And podcast at that time sounded like a great opportunity, not only to me to talk to people, but like I was telling you before about, I wanted to give voice and platform to people who are doing great stuff, airline people, because there are many of them who are building great digital products, who are doing, I don't know, innovative things. So I just wanted to give them platform to tell their stories. Now, if I go back to impact, a lot of times, to me, it's funny when, I don't know, I go to then live physical event, like this huge, I don't know, aviation festival, FTs, other events, and people would come to me and say, I don't know them in person. I say, I listen to your podcast, It's like, and they feel like they know you, and I have the same feeling when I listen to other podcasts,
Yeah.
So to me, it evolved in a really a beautiful, let's say, platform when we can connect people. People get to know me a little bit more personally, and I get to know a lot of great minds in our industry, and then we share their stories. So, and I think, again, people who are working, who are doing the same things in practice appreciate that, because they can, on one side, sometimes learn, but on the other side, just see what other people are doing, what are their challenges, what are their troubles, so they can emphasize and correlate with that,
Yeah. And keep doing that amazing job, because you surely inspired us to also move forward with our own web podcast and now on YouTube as well.
That's great to hear. That's great to hear. The more, the better. The more we talk about this, the more we connect the industry, the better.
Thank you so much, Iztok. Thank you for your time and for all the work you're doing in this area.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me again, and looking forward to seeing this live.
Brand Space on Air. Future Peaks podcast series.